The vocal side of WoW is the worst part of this game. What's up, YouTube? And this is another video talking about, well, the worst side of WoW, apparently, which is the people who talk about WoW. and I want to asterisk this before I read, because I haven't read this yet, truly haven't. But I guarantee it's not going to be the vocal side that complements the game. It's going to be the vocal side that criticizes the game. Let's read. I cannot express this any clearer. As a new player, my least favorite part of WoW is how hellbent the vocal minority are at making everything in the game seem terrible. I went into WoW expecting a formulaic trash heap that would be fun for a month and get stale. I don't think it's been out a month, so okay. Anyways, that's what people would have me believe. The people spouting hyper-analyzed garbage at the top of their lungs in videos titled "The War Within Worth It? Why am I quitting WoW?" I expected to be forced into using over-minimalist shitty UI because of how bloated the content this game would be. I expected a convoluted, terrible retcon story that I couldn't keep track of. I went into WoW expecting the most toxic, self-obsessed, power-hungry people I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. I went into WoW expecting to hate it. What was I met with? All right, let's stop right there. Just for a second. Why am I quitting WoW? This is obviously a reference to Quinn's video. And let me say that a lot of people are quick to judge the content creators who have been complaining about WoW for some time. And a lot have been complaining really since probably like the BFA era. Maybe beforehand, of course, but like really BFA, post-BFA, Shadowlands, Dragonflight, like these are the major expansions that we're talking about, that people really just got more and more upset and more dissatisfied with the current state of WoW. When someone like that says, why am I quitting WoW? Why have I quit WoW? Why have I quit WoW in the past? And why am I quitting now? Understand that that comes with about 20 years of game time, you know, like of playing the game. Now, I'm not saying continuous. This usually isn't continuous for people, but people have, for at some point in those 20 years, played WoW semi-consistently at some point in that year. So like most people who play WoW have a point where they kind of sort of parabola effect, where they play until they sort of plateaus and then they dip and they stop playing, which is a natural effect of most games. But for people who really dislike the current state of WoW, it's that constant saying that people don't like, which is unfortunately, we're an airport. We're gonna announce our departure. It's like so I think a lot of content creators do announce their departures because one, they garner communities that may still play the game, but also they garner communities which also may have quit before them and may be considering quitting, you know, after their particular content creator quits, because a lot of people, unfortunately, they take their opinions from other content creators, and that influences them to make the decision that they're going to make, because a lot of people who don't like the criticism of WoW, like this person obviously does, there's another group of people who see those criticisms and understand that those criticisms have evidence and backing to them. Now, the second part, I expected a convoluted, terrible retcon story. I would argue that if you're going to talk about the story of WoW, the story of WoW has been consistently retconned. I think there's a lot of things that have been filled to sort of make things sort of make sense in the end. I mean, all of Shadowlands was the buildup of Sylvanas, and then the jailer afterwards, and then this quick fall down, and then just rush to like make things okay again. And all this meaningful like portions with Anduin were done so sloppily that we're sitting at like at the beginning of it, we're like, okay, you know, beginning of this new expansion, we're like, all right, Anduin's back. You know, like, you know, okay, they're trying to make this meaningful war-torn story, someone with PTSD, and it just falls off so quickly. So I mean, I don't know if you could say like it wasn't terribly retconned. I would say the game is pretty easy to keep track of, just because I would say, like, for the most part, you don't need to know about Classic to play, you know, The War Within. You don't need to know about previous expansions. The reason why I think WoW is pushing so hard for you to do Dragonflight is because I don't think WoW has previously connected their expansions to one another. And they've only been connected by maybe just their previous expansion, and that's it. So I would say that's the case for the most part. So I can understand that position where it's like keeping track of the story. I don't think is something that is too difficult. So let's talk about the second paragraph. What was I met with? I was met with pure immersion. From the get-go, you were drawn to the world with 2 phenomenal cinematics, amazing art direction, and superb voice acting. The controls were simple to understand and grew on itself, continuously allowing me to feel my power fantasy creep into view. I would say it's kind of like, it's more of like your power is high, and then once you get to like the mid-levels, it dips a bit, and then it picks up again once you start doing like endgame dungeons. So it's kind of more of like a slight dip so you can feel like a bit of the challenge. But for the most part, if you're an experienced player, you don't feel any challenge, and you're just kind of like pulling and pulling until you die. You know, you just like, you pull endless mobs of people, and the game gives you more and more space between mobs. It's gonna be like, and try to force you to single target stuff. It's kind of weird. I'm playing a subtlety rogue. Eesh. I don't know about subtlety rogue. Are subtlety rogues good? I thought assassination rogues were good. Something I was told was the least fun, boring, bloated shithole of a class, and I was having a blast. I think any class within the confines of yourself is always going to be good. This is an argument that comes up frequently within the WoW space, which is trying to say that tier lists don't matter. And truth be told, if you're considering within the confines of yourself, and if you're not doing like endgame raids, it's true. It's true. I think you can get away with doing dungeons, heroic dungeons and stuff like that, and a certain degree of mythics as well, as long as your gear is stacked otherwise. But it's kind of like building your raid around a ret paladin back in classic WoW, is that if you have the build around it and you have people who are optimally classed, you can take 1 or 2 megs, you know, like to try to like fill the space. But ultimately, once you start doing higher level mythics and you start doing harder, or you start doing like raid content, you're gonna get weeded out. Someone's gonna pick you over somebody else, especially being a DPS where people don't truly need more DPS. So that's my honest feeling about that. The character creation was engaging enough without being so complex. It took 4 hours. That's just so. The races are distinct and having option to unlock more by playing the game, not playing extra, which was awesome. I disagree with that in the sense that you unlocking the allied races is a bit time consuming, in my opinion, for very little payoff whenever you're paying for the expansions. And I don't know, to me, the allied race experience, it feels like it takes too long for so little payoff nowadays. And it doesn't feel like it was made for the current expansion. It feels like it was made so long ago. Like, it feels dated. As I continue to level, and most of the time people are going to pick the original races anyways. As I continue to level, I proceeded to get more and more add-ons, but not LVUI or weak auras, but camera add-ons. See, this is what confuses me. You know about weak auras and LVUI, but you're saying you're brand new to the game. So I'm kind of confused about that personally, but I do get the adding more add-ons to the game. Personally, when I get back into WoW, anytime I'm getting back into WoW, I start with very few add-ons and I add more and more as time goes on. I know already that I need to add weak auras to my toolkit, just because, not because like, it's mostly laziness, but it's like, I don't want to deal with knowing what I have to interrupt. I want to be able to see it, press it, done. You know, it gets kind of frustrating to do. It's not very convenient to do interrupts when you're tank, in my opinion. It's just because like I get visually distracted very easily, and a lot of things get like overwhelming. But that maybe because I'm getting old. But camera add-ons and UI add-ons that would make the world more immersive and RPG like. I don't know about that. I think you can survive like you don't necessarily need bartender nowadays too much, except for I think you do need like a UI add-on for like buffs and like debuffs on target. That to me is like visually like it's important to do. I was RP walking and noticed a large pot that they were cooking soup and people working on the boats and crafts, everyone unique and separate. Just as quickly as I was immersed and distracted by a group of children running across and snow breaking me away, allowing me to feel wholehearted and happy. The cooking events and that kind of stuff, I think definitely is a cool event. I do think that the professions have definitely improved, in my opinion. My only fault with professions is that still it feels like it doesn't feel like professions go along with your leveling experience. It definitely feels like if you're cutting time out of your leveling experience to do professions, you're going to, it's like wasted time, it feels like, almost, because if you spent that time instead leveling, you'd be much higher, and you don't necessarily need leveling gear. I think the part about professions that I miss the most is getting gear along the way, that it's like, wow, this is actually something useful for me, because you would go a while without getting a gear piece. I think too often we get gear bloat, where it's like we get so many replacements so quickly, it doesn't feel like important anymore. I understand at the beginning of an expansion, your gear that you previously had in an expansion, it feels good to hold on to gear that you had for longer periods of time, because it's like, wow, you know, I farmed gear that, you know, I didn't need to replace immediately. But I will say, I do miss the part of leveling where it's like, you're level 75 and it's like you hit level 76 and a piece of gear unlocks and you're like, I haven't got like gloves for a while, so this is great. Or shoulders for a while. It usually was shoulders for me, shoulders or a helm. So that to me is what I miss the most about professions. But I will say profession experience has improved quite a bit. As I've continued to level, I've discovered some of the coolest cosmetics for transmogs and mounts. Some recolors, yeah, but these allow me to seek out new combos for my different color transmog sets, and I plan to get and allow for more diversity. And even I've yet to even reach in end game content, but the dungeons, delves, raids look insanely cool and unique, and I'm completely open to have these overly minimal UI and weak auras. Doesn't know. In order to clear the harder content. Why? Because I can turn them off and switch on my immersion ones whenever I want. I mean, I guess. I mean, you need. I don't think you can do raid content without like weak auras and like the add-ons though. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to argue here. I can play WoW however I want to, not how some neckbeard who has been playing since he could wipe his own ass decides I can play the game. This is a constant argument of like people telling me what to do. You can have your own WoW experience. That is fine. You can have your casual experience. That is fine in WoW. No one is saying you can't have your casual experience. It's a moot argument, because no one is telling you that you can't, like, you have to have their experience. They're just simply telling you that if you're going to have my experience, which is the raid content, the heroic raid content, the end game content, then you are going to have to participate to my level, because if you are not, you're wasting my time, or you're making the raid harder for everybody else. You're making this Mythic Plus harder for everybody else. So that's what I think that's what people are saying. And so no one is telling casuals you have to be like a sweat, and no one is telling sweats that they have to be casual. But it's casuals that are telling like sweats that you're telling me I have to do this. It's like, no, we're not. We're simply telling you that if you're going to have our experience and you want to be in part of the raid group, and you're going to make everyone's experience worse because you don't know the boss fights, because you don't have the weak auras, because you don't know, like, you don't have the proper gearing, and you're not min-maxed on every possible thing you could have at your level, then we don't want you, because you're not going to waste just my time. You're going to waste everybody else's time in the group. The only complaint I've had is I was in a guild and I was egoed really hard with passive-aggressive comments when asking questions about the game as a new player, but I quickly realized this. This is the player that is the vocal minority. The reason you hate the game isn't because there's nothing to love in it, but because you love nothing in it. Okay, I see what he's saying. So it's like it's not that there isn't something to love, because there is something that I love about it. It's something that you don't have anything you love about it. And I don't think those two opinions are completely separate in the Venn diagram of opinions. I think they are overlapped quite a bit. So I think that I understand what you're saying, but I think those opinions overlap too much to say that's that's just simply wrong opinion. The fact that this person was egoed really hard with passive aggressive comments, basically pushed out of their guild for asking too many questions in the guild, I think is because, and I will say this is a bit of a nature of, depending on what guild you get in, people go, oh, this guild has so many achievement points, I want to get in this guild. And they're like, hey guys, what's a good add-on for questing? And people are like, you're in the wrong guild. You need to join a casual guild, helpful to new players. Look for that in like the guild description. People want to join one where people are well-experienced veteran players, and they get upset when those veteran players don't want to deal with new players. Some people just don't want to deal with it because simply, like I said before, you're going to drag the group down, or the conversations that you're trying to have are like that's not how they want to spend their hour or so playing between dealing with their 6 kids and 3 jobs. And that's the thing of when people say like, oh, the neckbeards are making this game worse. It's that people who are now older have less time to play and they don't want to spend it dealing with your newbiness, to be honest. And I don't think people should have to subject themselves to that. I don't think players should have to take care of the new player base. That's the game's job. And if the game doesn't do that well enough, then that's a fault of the game. If you can't figure things out, and the game's not telling you that properly, then that's the game's fault, in my opinion. So you see every village, every NPC, every dungeon, and now only time you find fun is when you grind, when the grind is fresh and people around you are as miserable as you are. I will say that misery loves company. I can agree with that. The misery does indeed love company. But at the same time, the fresh grind is, I think, what a lot of, and this is what this player probably doesn't understand, that being a new player, is that the fresh experience is a lot for WoW players, especially if you don't know, like the brand new experience, like, you know, back in, like the first 5 or 6 original expansions and beyond. The first experience, the first month of expansion is huge, and it matters a lot. And I think those first impressions that you have can be detrimental to the overall experience for a new player, or for a veteran player who's new to the new expansion. Because, for example, if you do an early release and that puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth for people who don't want to spend extra money, then that can set you off on the wrong foot. So that's all I'm saying with that. But I do overall agree with that opinion. I do think that people do wallow in their misery when it comes to those expansions. Like they look for reasons to quit, and they may not look for reasons where they would have previously looked for solutions. So TLDR, yes, it's a long post. I know I don't think a lot of people will read it, but if by some miracle you do read this and you are the type of player, please let it go. This game is for us. This game for us is as beautiful and unique as it was for you in 2004, 2007, or 2013. The things you fell in love with are still here. The difference is you're min-maxing your enjoyment while we are discovering it. I do think that people do min-max their enjoyment experience to be a lot shorter than what it used to be. Whereas previously it could take 6 months to realize that you don't enjoy the game in its current state. Now it takes a lot less time. So I will say a lot of people, just as it is a tired expression of the vocal minority who hates the game, is ruining it for everyone else, I think it is the tired expression of the new player who states that the game is fine, the game is better than it ever, and it's still as good, if not better than what it used to be, is very tired, and it does get a little bit repetitive. See the line, Bart? People who post online tend to be negative because positive experiences either have less engagement or because they're having fun and they don't need validation. But yeah, most discussions, especially here, are negative because people need an outlet to vent. Like how most dungeon experiences are totally fine, but everybody remembers the one time something toxic happened. Yeah, we always remember the time that something got ninja looted versus the time that a dungeon experience went well. You know, if 20 dungeon experiences went well, then it went well. Or the tired, the very classic expression that Asmongold likes to use, which is you can build 100 bridges, but if you suck one dick, you're a dick sucker. So I think that is definitely a true expression. Since OP mentioned content creators with their negative content like that generates more engagement, either by people who agree or people who disagree, which can then create discussions and even more engagement. Yes, because the negative experience can get people who agree with your negative experience, and also people who agree as well as disagree. So the people who disagree write essay-long comments in your YouTube, and then you put hide this user, and then you have people who agree with you. So I will agree with that, but at the same time, people who have positive experiences have so many loyal fans who will look to their content creator to validate their opinions. So just as much as people will look to a negative opinion to validate their experience, people will look to a positive opinion. So I think this is kind of semi-balanced out. But overall, the negative experience does get to tap into both of those people. So yeah, that's why. You know what regular people do when they're done with a game? This might shock you. They stop playing the game. Content creators cannot do this. They have to let people know why they're not going to play the game for over 10 minutes. A lot of people say this and they want to judge content creators. Content creators do this and that because a lot of people do hang on to content creators' opinion. That's why they're called influencers. And the reason why is a lot of these bigger content creators go, why aren't you playing this game? Why won't you play this game? You stop playing this game. Why won't you play this game? You won't talk about why you won't play this game. Why'd you stop playing this game? Is there something wrong with the game? Is there something wrong with the game? So if you never say it, people are going to incessantly bother you about it, one. And two, people just leave sometimes. And I think as a content creator, if you don't say why you're going to leave, those people won't stop, depending on your size, especially. So I think that's kind of where people misconstrue that opinion because they don't know what that experience is like. For me, like I always say this whenever I talk about big things, because I mean, I'm a small content creator, but for me, it was always the experience of, well, to be honest, I don't want to play Undertale because the people who were in the comments ruined that experience for me. They made that experience miserable for me almost every single time. So it became this thing of, well, I don't want to play more because I truly don't want to insult the game by being jaded now that everyone has effectively ruined my experience for me. So so it's like, I think that's what people misconstrue with that. So that's how I feel about that. And also, by the way, Reddit is a positive echo chamber and it's frustrating. I just want to say that. I really try not to give them any watch time. Recently, I saw a short on YouTube of Asmongold reacting to Quinn's I Quit WoW video. Holy shit, that was the most teeth grinding, annoying trash I've seen in a long time. I saw his reaction. I saw Quinn's video. I saw Asmongold's reaction. Quinn's video, I think Quinn really tried to put in a lot of suggestions as to why he thinks the game is flawed, but also I think where he went off track was where he tried to throw in suggestions. And I think to me, Asmongold really anchored a lot of those suggestions into, okay, I think you're missing the point, but I think this is the way that it could actually might improve the game. But a lot of people also forget that these people have played the game for a very long time, and so in my opinion, they're like, they do hold more weight in a sense, just as like any other player would, but they made a career of making opinions on these games. And so a lot of people go like, oh, they just want this, they want a reward, they want to be rewarded for this, but literally the game, its devs, players, viewers, they all look to them for their opinions, and they get paid millions for it, and that holds value and weight. People go like, oh, it doesn't matter. You're like literally it does matter monetarily, and you can tell it does matter because of the amount of people who do watch the content and do subscribe to the content. It's typically millions more than Thief Mort Reaper Soul's opinion, which gets 22 updates on Reddit. I've learned to mostly avoid certain parts of MMOs communities because the people are always miserable in those. I do agree that there is always a section for people who are miserable in MMOs, but at the same time, there's a section for people who are just despairingly happy. Just all the time, and nothing can go wrong. There's no flaws with my game, and if you say that there is, then you're wrong. And if you make any legitimate comments, then you're just looking for attention. Like, there's nothing you can say to ever dissuade their opinion. And the thing is, no one is telling you to change your opinion about WoW. They're simply saying their opinion. And people get so triggered by that. They're like, you're trying to tell me not to like the game. It's like, no, enjoy the game if you like the game. I'm just saying my opinion. And the reason why it's so triggering for you is because you know there's a partial, if not a whole truth to it. And your opinion is so fragile that it weighs on the opinion of others. Or you want to plug your ears so bad because if you hear opinion that may remind you that your thoughts are somewhat flawed, that you'll just break down into pieces. It's so silly. The dungeon comments is so true. I haven't had one bad dungeon in this expansion. If you asked me to remember any of them, I would just shrug. The line that should actually be said is maybe stop fucking watching hate videos to form your fucking opinion. Remember a single M+. I remember at a single M+, I did a starfish at the starfish of the start. Oh, start-ish of Shadowlands that involved a demon hunter calling my friend every name under the sun, continually berating and arguing with me because my friend was Lone Wolf MM and didn't take out his pet for heroism, even though we would have timed it with our eyes closed. Oh, for people trying to like optimize and that type of thing. I will say this comment, like I thought it was going one direction and I almost agreed with it. And this is what I'm going to say. I haven't had one bad dungeon this expansion, so if you asked me to remember any of them, I would just shrug. I thought I was going in the direction of, yeah, I haven't had one bad dungeon. Like no dungeon has given me any bit of hardship. And if you have asked me to like remember them, I don't know about that because they're just not memorable. Except maybe the meadery. That one seemed kind of cool. You want to know how much How much I expect negativity. I came here thinking that this was a post complaining about the voice acting. I love WoW. Played for 13 years, made great friends. It has issues like anything, but it's still the most played game many times over. That's so fucking funny. I genuinely laughed out loud. I don't know. I can't tell what people are doing here. Oh, for the voice acting? I don't like the way the voice acting for the Earthen at all, in my opinion, but whatever. I've been playing for almost 20 years. What was true then is still true today. The game is fun when you don't have some shrieking greaseball telling you it's not. I think people look to the negative opinions to validate their opinions. But people who put so much weight in those negative opinions existing, I think, have very fragile egos. I don't even hate the War Within yet. I've been playing Dragonflight, leveling a character until I get it. The WoW streamer Tally was complaining about the Blizzard isn't releasing stuff in time, and he's already leveling a DPS, which he hasn't done this early in the expansion. Dude's been streaming 24/7 since early release, and last I checked, he was still streaming today and said on his stream that WoW is the only game he plays. The man has been through a whole content expansion in 2 weeks and is bitching there's not enough to do. Some of us don't even have the game yet. What? This was 4 hours ago. What? I'm confused now. There are people whose job it is, I will say, to play through the content wholly, and they have lots of characters. You shouldn't build an expansion for them. But I will say, like, usually the common complaint in a lot of games that are live service games is that the people who do burn through those quickly are content creators and people who are sweats. I think that's normal, to be honest. I don't think it's exclusive to WoW. Welcome to WoW. Glad to see you having fun. Welcome to Azeroth. Glad you caught up to this phenomenon. I really wish, to be honest, that that people would, when you have so many opinions that I think that they center around one singular thought process, I think that's flawed. And I think this is the issue with Reddit, is that Reddit often has one opinion and they don't like when people have any other opinion. And it is a positive echo chamber often for game Reddits. And I think the moderators of the game often will like delete content and remove content that is contrarian in any sort of way. Or even not even perceivably contrarian, but they get the inkling that it could be contrary to their group positive thinking, like their group, positive think. So I think the big flaw with this opinion is that when you don't see any disagreements in it, that I think that's flawed, because no one in the negative thought process is going to comment on it. And like I said before, I think at least in the negatives, you get people who say, the people who are positive who have disagreements. So people who are positive, you get none of the negatives, so, or they ban them or they delete them. So anyways, I don't know. There's parts that I agree with it, but I think a lot of it's very short-sighted. And a lot of it is that tired old expressions of the game is good, right? All the negative people are wrong, guys, right? And everyone's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, okay. Anyways, that's it for the video. Catch y'all on the next one.